Hello, my name's Steve Haynes and I'm the co-author of this book, How to Go to Work, the honest advice no one ever tells you at the start of your career. And in these bite-sized sessions for Beckett careers, I'll be going through some of the essential tools and tips that will help you make a great start in working life. And in this session, we'll be looking at productivity. Now, I'm sure you've had many opportunities to build up your own tools and techniques to be able to effectively manage your time. That could be to-do lists, keeping a diary, or maybe a bullet journal or something similar to that. But actually, when you move into working life, the rules of productivity change a bit. Up until now, through your course and through the work that you've done, you've probably had quite set assignments and times, modules, you've had terms and years that you're working in. But actually, when you start in the workplace, that can become a little bit less structured. You might have a job description, but you might not necessarily do that whole job description all the time. You'll have different projects that you'll be working on with different people. You'll need to know how to collaborate in different teams and what productivity looks like when you're working with others on quite complex tasks. And lastly, you'll have this whole thing about people evaluating the quality of the work you've been doing and making judgments that will make a big difference in terms of your career progression, perhaps things like your pay, in terms of how you're succeeding in that job. So what we'll do in this session is look at a few of these questions and see how we can make sure that you're as productive as you possibly can be in work. Oh, and one last thing, we'll also be talking about your inbox or whatever communication tool you end up using. There'll be a lot of people sending you a lot of messages, so just a quick couple of tips there to make sure that you're managing your inbox rather than it managing you. Okay, let's start with how we set ourselves up for being really productive in the workplace. And I'm going to go through 3 P's that should help you navigate some of these challenges. First of all, I'd recommend you spend a lot of time preparing. What do I mean by this? Well, you'll have the opportunity to have some one-to-one conversations with your boss. These will be ways to work out what your objectives are in the big picture, maybe across the next 6 months, maybe across the next year. You'll be having the opportunity to talk through some of the tasks that you'll be expected to deliver, and a good opportunity to talk about what their expectations of a good result would be. You'll also have the opportunity to review your job description, make sure you're doing the right things and how you're working alongside other people as well. All of this is going to be indispensable to help you really effectively prepare for the job you're going to do. What's next? Well, then we're going to look at this question of planning. So how you put all of these things in order. And the best way to do this is by starting with my last P, which is prioritization. So what I want you to do is to take a blank sheet of paper or maybe a blank page of a document on your laptop and divide it into 4 corners. Okay, and I want you to put in the top right hand corner do, and in the bottom left hand corner I want you to put delay or maybe discard. And the last things I want you to put in there in the top left-hand corner is going to be delegate, and in the other one I want you to put in decide. Well, what's going on here? Well, what we're starting to look at is importance and urgency. What you need to do is take a list of your tasks, the things you've been asked to do, and break them down in detail and then put them into some sense of priority. If it's urgent and important, it's very much in the do list. Maybe it's something you can do straight away. Could be a big thing or a small thing, and I'd encourage you to take on some of the big things first, but then we can look at some of the smaller tasks as well. What might this be? Well, let's say your boss says to you, I've really liked the work you've been doing, I'd love to get you to present it at an all-staff meeting. Next Thursday sound okay to you? Well, you're going to have to put a presentation together, you're going to have to think through who the audience is, you're going to have to spend a bit of time reviewing the work you've done. You'll need to clarify with your boss what are the things they want to see put in that presentation. And then you'll need to know how long you're supposed to present for, and maybe some technical details about, is it going to be online? Are you going to do it in person? Is it going to be a PowerPoint presentation? Or is it going to be a report you're going to read to? All of these things need to be thought through. But this is definitely something we're putting in that high priority area. So you've broken down the big task, you know when it's going to be delivered, and you're making sure you're having the conversation about these expectations. What else do we want to have? Well, let's look at something that's important but quite low urgency. This is the bit I'd recommend you decide about. It might not be on your immediate list to do. You could have it in a second section. This could be an important thing like the final year-end report, where you need to talk about all of your successes and make sure that your clients or the people you fund or the people who buy the product that you're producing are going to evaluate your work. And I'd recommend during that time you make some time in your day to decide how you're going to take those tasks on. You might want to keep a running list of all of your achievements, something I really recommend you do and you're thinking ahead to probation. Maybe you want to spend a bit of time asking others and getting points of input as well to make sure that you've got the richest, most possible report. And this is really helpful. So put that in your decide box and set a bit of time ahead in the future to decide what that might be. Okay, what's the other thing we're going to look at? There's something around delegation as well. There's an opportunity to give some of these tasks to other people. Now, it might not be the case when you're at the start of your career. There might be nobody to delegate to. But think about how you're working in a team and what that team can do around you as well. Spend a bit of time working out what their skills are and how they complement yours. And the last thing is delay or discard. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's coming at you all the time that you're just going to need to make the decision. That's not important, it's not urgent, it's not something I have to do. Because one of the things you find in the workplace is that the most important thing in terms of your productivity is your time and how you manage your time. So I'd really recommend putting these chunks of time into your diary to not only deliver tasks, go to meetings, do a bit of reading, but actually find out how you're going to think through your priorities. One of the things I do is at the start and the end of a day, I'll write a fresh to-do list. Make sure I'm breaking down those topics as much as possible and putting them in order. And I often put on the left-hand side of the page, this is an A project, a B project, a C project, and a D. And I should really work out with my boss whether that's something I don't have to do or is actually something that somebody else is better placed to do. The next thing we're going to look at then is about how you deliver in a team. Well, I've mentioned this a bit earlier, but what I'd recommend is looking at all of the people that you work with. Understand what their skills are by having those conversations and get them to give you a bit of feedback about how you do your job, what they expect of you. And you can navigate that through a lot of those little one-on-one conversations as you go. Maybe arrange a coffee with somebody to have a bit of a conversation about what their job is and what you can learn from them and what their recommendations are for you. And keep feeding that back in your conversation with your boss. That will help you understand that working in teams a lot better. But here are 2 tips about making sure you're really productive in teams. And one is have lots of opportunities to ask questions about things. Nobody's expecting you to be able to do the whole job right from the start. Instead, have the conversation to make people understand what you think your role is, how it fits with theirs, and most importantly, show you're working as you're doing it. Don't feel you need to hide something until it's perfect. Make sure you're getting good feedback as you go. People really like that sharing. They can understand where you've got to. And be honest about your challenges and your problems as well, even if you feel a bit nervous to do so. I understand that. I don't like sharing work until I feel I'm really ready to share it. But you do have to make sure that when you're hitting a barrier, maybe there's something you don't know, you're having a conversation about it with the people who can help you. Keep asking questions, it's so helpful. The second real trick about working in teams is dependability. I need to know that you're going to deliver what I'm expecting on time with good quality. And if you've got any problems, you're going to tell me about it, as I've just said. And making sure that you do keep to those deadlines, or you do say when you can't make them, making sure that the quality, even the spelling and the punctuation is right, is going to be hugely important. And if you need some support with that, well, of course, there's people you can ask, and there's tech tools that can help you do that too as well. So make sure everybody knows what you need to be able to thrive in work. Okay, last bit, I did promise you, your inbox. Now, there are loads of different communication tools out there that we're using now, Teams channels, Slack, you can have WhatsApp groups running all the time, and it's really important you can navigate those. And here's what I recommend you do. You need to set out 3 folders in your inbox, or maybe questions in your mind about these different communication channels. So ask yourself, is there an action I need to do contained in this email? you'll get lots of different things coming your way. There'll be updates on what's happening in the canteen if you have one. There might be some interesting questions and a long thread about people debating some of the ideas about the business strategy that you've been copied in on. There might be something which is quite specifically, can you please go and pick up this document from this place and bring it to this meeting? So find out if there's an action. There's an action in there, either do it or put in a file that says action. Then secondly, there'll be things which are in progress. Now remember, your inbox is not your to-do list. You've got one of those, and actually you're cluttering up your brain if you've got all of these things that need somebody else to do something or you need to ask a question about. So have a pending file, something that you know is happening, is in progress, and you're going to need to come back to later, but doesn't need doing straight away. The last one is going to be all of the other stuff. And maybe you want to have a file that's about reading. I certainly do. And that's some things that I can come back to maybe once a week. They're not urgent, there's no action in there, and I need to then make sure that I understand a broader piece about the business or a debate that's happening somewhere else. So there you go, you've got a read file where you can come back to in regular intervals and make sure you've covered that too. It's very unlikely that you'll be able to process every single action in every single email, so make sure you keep them regularly reviewed and make sure you're not having an inbox full of lots of things which could or couldn't be happening any given time. It's going to be very hard for your brain to process all of that. Oh, and one last thing, delete. Delete those emails or archive them if you feel more comfortable, or put them in another folder. Absolutely important to make sure you're getting through that list and you're feeling that sense of progress. I hope that was all useful advice. There's lots more in some other sessions that I'm running. And remember, all of this stuff is going to be quite helpful when you get to the start of your career, but nothing beats a really in-depth conversation with your careers advisor at Beckett Careers. If you'd like to find out more, you've got an extraordinary resource with Beckett Careers. Just go to myhub.leedsbeckett.ac.uk, and there you'll find a wealth of information, advice and guidance. There are skills workshops that you can attend, there are vacancies, there are employer advice sessions, and most of all you've got the opportunity to have those in-depth conversations with the careers consultants. So do take the opportunity to look at all that information, advice and guidance. It will be undoubtedly hugely helpful to you, whatever stage you're at in your career.